UX design was something it started with. Think of that you learn so much. Maybe you expect there'll be learnings in a company, but you always go for learnings. But when you come out with a lot of learnings, then what do you expect? That's a plus point.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Design Hack Podcast. Today we have very special guests with us, and hope you guys are having fun with the podcast. Today we have Shreya with us, uh, which is gonna come on the screen, and we'll introduce her. She is working at Flipkart right now. She has great chunk of experience at different companies. We're gonna talk about that in this podcast, and so yeah, welcome Shreya. What's going on?
Thank you, Abhay. Thank you for the introduction. It's been a pleasure of having you with this podcast today. And my experience in design has been over 6 years now, and it has been quite a journey, I would say. And currently, I'm working at Flipkart as a product designer on the seller side experiences. So I work on the seller platform, which is for anyone who wants to sell on Flipkart and wants to get started with their business. So I assist them grow their business through Flipkart. So that's about what I'm working on now.
Interesting. Let's just jump right into the podcast. I really start the podcast with a generic question, like how exactly design did came into your life, and how that curiosity of design did kind of spark in your life.
So for me, design came into my life when I was working as a front end developer, and I had a mentor that time, and she used to always talk about experiences in UI development. Like this is not a good experience, or this is a good experience. So I always used to ask her what is this experience word that she's using, because it was something very new to me. Even I did not know that this is a career that someone can pursue. Also, this was back in 2015. And when I became more curious about it, I started asking her more questions on it. And then she was not the right person in that particular company. So she directed me to a design lead there, and it was a service company. There, I could, under his guidance, I could pick up some projects in that company itself so that it can help them as well, and it can help me. So I was shadowing a lead that time, and there I could learn very basic things about design and like what is a user experience, what's a user, who's a user, what is an interface, very basic terminologies, what is an interaction, what's an experience, these things. And I was shadowing them for a project to get more insights about what the process they used back then. It was an e-commerce company, so I helped them to improve a checkout experience. That was my first project. Obviously, very special because I learned a lot of basics back then. And then I thought that this is something which is very limited. I need to learn more. I need to learn how to bring the ideas to life and not just the core of it. So I went on to do masters. I was still confused that time. Should I do masters in design? Should I do masters in software? So I picked up this course called software engineering from NUS. The reason why I picked it up was it was very flexible. So if you want to be a designer, you want to be a product manager, you want to be a developer, you want to be a QA, it assists for all of them. It does have a base, but you can choose your electives, and you can choose what subjects you want based on what career you want ahead. So because of it, I could also understand business. I could also understand innovation. I could also understand product development. I could also understand design. So it was like a whole package, and definitely it did help me to open my thinking horizon. Also helped me to think about processes, that business processes which the companies follow and how to optimize them. And even the ideas or whatever I learned from there, I could apply in design. I had that pre in my mind that because I have learned all of these things, it should be inculcated in my day-to-day practices in design. And I'm still continuing to do it. I would not call it a bias, but it's like a pre-knowledge that I already have, and I take the decision based on those pre-notions that I have built due to the education. So that was the best part of it. And Then in Singapore, the course was extremely it was very rigorous. So even the design courses were very intense, and it required you to do a lot of research. Also, it required not very focused into UI design, but very focused into research and the idea part of it. You know, what is the idea that you're getting? What's the innovation factor that you're getting into the problem statement. So it was more related to that because they felt like UI is something they'll learn on their own, but the generation of ideas part would be what would make a designer stand apart. So that's that I would say was the highlight of the course.
Interesting. So the one thing that I really want to focus here is like because it's an interesting journey because usually people kind of transition or kind of get the motivation to start in design starting from their college experiences. That's what I've heard from a lot of guests out here. Because your experience is really new that you started as an engineer working and then kind of explored things and kind of transition into phases. So I really want to ask one more question. Like, how did actually college experience? How was your college experience, both bachelor's and masters? And did you ever thought of kind of design or like experience in your college experience?
So from my bachelor's degree, I had no clue about even graphic design. If you say, I would always assume that in college fest or something, there's somebody who's in the creative team was doing all these posters. Back then, I was more interested in felicitations or organizing things more. I know even that's a skill that you also use in design because you create presentation, you talk about your design. So I would say that base got formed in my bachelor's degree because we got a lot of opportunities to talk about your work, talk about your projects. So I think that base was, and communication obviously. So that base was set there, but I did not know about design back then. It was only when I started working that okay, this is also something which can be explored. Obviously, we all know about art and craft and digital illustrations. I think digital maybe not much back then, but yeah, illustrations and all of that, but nothing like a product design to be a career. So UX design was something it started with in my first company, and then slowly when you started to learn more, it's about what is it in product design. You start to learn more about it, and in the master's degree, I would say a lot of things started becoming clear because you're talking about real world products. You're talking about things that people are using and people are using to solve their problems. So because of that, everything became very realistic. Any project that I used to work in my master's degree had to be used in real life. It has to be simulated to a real life situation. So because of that, it suddenly started feeling everything started feeling very difficult. Like how to make something which is not just a fake college project. It's a real industry usable product. Even if it's a small prototype, still it should be used in industry. And in NUS, because we were doing internship in a company as well, so the focus was that that company should be able to use that product. So obviously you cannot make a like a pretentious product project or something. A team has to work to make something which can be used in industry. So that was very different in that course. And also the people, Singapore believes in a lot of innovation. There's innovation all around the country, whether it is in buses or it's in the metros. They have innovation all around, and they strive to innovate better every day, obviously, because it's highly developed as well. So that the city is so well designed that if you just talk about a small metro card or a bus card that you use to travel across the country, even that is so well designed. Like how would you be able to use it? How would it get reloaded? How would the money get deducted? Even all of that was very well designed. So because they focus so much on innovation, even the college was focusing so much on like innovation and digital transformation, something new coming out, something new that people can use. So that was one experience, and it's such a small place that if you'll meet all the designers, if you live there for 1 or 2 years, you'll meet everybody, and everybody will know you in person. That was something which is very easy. It's very easy to socialize there. In just half an hour to 40 minutes or something, you'll reach anywhere, and you can a very close knit community, I would say. So.
Interesting, interesting. So definitely, I want to know more about it, and we'll talk about it. So I want to know, how was that experience? Like, obviously, like your company, when you were working, you got to know about experience, user experience, UX. How did you decide that masters is the right approach, not kind of joining any cohort-based courses or anything like that, and directly jumping into masters, and then figuring things out? How did you, like, why did you decide masters is the solution, and then when you got into masters, how that kind of started to shaping up in that masters journey?
So the decision to do masters, so the actual course that I wanted to get study was human computer interaction. And I applied to a bunch of also colleges, including US. And the only reason I could not go to US was due to I wasn't able to afford some of those colleges that I got admission into, and that is also a factor because you have to consider how much you're investing versus when you will be able to get it back. So that was the phase where I had to take a decision whether the course that was offered in NUS was right for me or not. Right, and also it was a part of my personal objective that I wanted to live in another country and experience what it is to do everything on yourself and be independent, and that was also one of the factors, I would say. But was it 100% related to my decision of getting into design? Not yet, because I was still like, let me see this course, let me um, figure out if this course will give me the right foundation or not. And as I picked up the electives, as I spoke to, as I created that personal bond with the all the faculty there, of the courses that I wanted to study, like something related to design or business innovation or something. Then I started to understand that, okay, so this is not just design is not a combination of just learning maybe prototyping or ideation and all of that. It's the whole process of developing some idea to life. And I think that was the trigger, that was the main trigger, which made me believe that, okay, when I come out of this course, I'm going to be like equally skilled enough to build my portfolio and add more projects. Obviously, NUS did help me a lot because I could work on a lot of projects there and also showcase that on my portfolio. When I was, teaching myself design, like when I used to work on personal projects, they were all pretentious. So I could just, do something which I could understand that time. But I did not know the whole dimension of it. For example, like, when you're understanding the problem statement, the researches in depths and everything, and how are you going to optimize it for your users. Everything was not in depth. It was all on surface level when I was doing my personal projects. While when I was working on a project in NUS, I could go in depth. Obviously, time was also a factor, but not everyone has time, to have 2 years to take a course and get a degree and then get a job. So because there was time, I could spend some more time and energy on it and work on the projects in detail. So that was, I think, that is, I think, the major difference. If let's say you want to be a product designer in like 2 months, obviously you
Hmm.
cannot go for master. You'll have to take a a faster course or a cohort where you can bring some side projects or personal projects in 2 months. What's the situation now? So now, after finishing NOS, when I started working on any personal projects, there was a huge change. So the project started having details now, because now I understood where to add details and where to not. So that is the difference that the master's degree made to me. And I would say that the project that I used to not get detail in 2 months before masters, now I'm able to get into the details in a shorter time. So that is the difference that that course has brought into me. Would I recommend it to other people? It's all totally up to them if they have the time to, and the money to spend on a master's degree. Otherwise, it will be a very long journey of little long journey of self teaching yourself or via a cohort to get yourself. You have to polish yourself and practice the whole art over and over again. So I think that's the difference that the master's degree brought into me.
Interesting, interesting. Just curious. So, one of the work experience that you had was at McFadden, where you kind of worked at as a UI developer and a UX designer. First, I really want to ask, was that the company kind of that which kind of made you experience UX?
Yes, that was my first company where I started working as UI developer, and then when I shadowed a mentor, then got an opportunity to work as a UX designer.
Okay, so just a follow-up question. Do you think the experience that you had as an engineer or a developer did help you as a designer to kind of shape better designs?
So in the beginning, it was not me becoming a better designer via developer. In the beginning, it was more like knowing things, like
Hmm.
okay, there's CSS. Okay, so there is web development. There are colors. There are fonts. So it was knowing things. What constitutes something on the web? There's heading this, subheading this. That was a process of me learning things. It was not like shaping in the beginning. But even in NUS, there was a part of the course where I was still coding, right? So, and I was designing also, and I was coding also. So, I used to be very particular back then that if I'm coding, then it has to be designed in a certain way, that it has to, be technically feasible because I understood layouts, I understood, more than basics of CSS, right? Even in McFadden, I used to spend a lot of time to do CSS animations or JS animations. So because that base was already in me, I could inculcate that while designing. That okay, this layout cannot be designed this way because it will not get executed. Otherwise, it will just take a very long time to develop. So even that base, it's still there. When I design, I keep that it automatically comes. So should someone know a lot of web development or mobile development? I would say no, but a limit that allows you to understand the constraints and make you work in that is enough. So that was the that is a very big plus, I would say, because today also when I speak to developers, I'm able to understand what they are trying to explain. And that I think is a very underrated skill because they'll say something is not possible, you'll say no, push for it. But if they're saying something is not possible and you're able to push for it knowing their constraints, then that is a plus
Hmm.
point, right? Just convincing them is not enough. You should understand why they're saying no, and then you should have some counterpoints to, okay, try this, okay, try that, okay, can you try this? So that conversation is really very important to have it as a designer. How would you develop it if you're not already a developer? Spend more time with them. Spend more time with how do they work on your platform. Spend more time to understand their grooming stages and all of that. So you'll understand. It's not like a very it's not a big deal to understand it. So I think that is still a plus. If someone would ask me to switch to coding, I would not. But having that base in me has definitely helped me to push for some designs which otherwise would have got deprioritized, or version 2, version 3 it would have gone. So that I'm still using it as a superpower.
Amazing. And I agree that having that experience that kind of really helps us to make better decisions as a designer, for sure. So just following up on this question about your experiences, when you kind of did your masters, you I think did work at a company in Singapore. How was that experience like, and differencing between India and like their did culture really impacted? How was that different?
So in Singapore, people are really, really driven. okay, they are extremely career oriented. So even we are, but in Singapore it is a little bit more. So the company that I worked in was a startup. Maybe it's different in a big company, but I worked in a very small startup, maybe around 20 people, 20 to 30 people. And they were very focused on executing great ideas. Like if we, when we used to work on, when we used to bring ideas to table, okay, this is how we're gonna design it, or this is how this product is gonna be, or the features. They were very extremely passionate about bringing difficult things to life. So it was a continuous challenge every day there. That you have to be good and you have to, meet those expectations, and be really innovative, because that's what they preach in, and maybe at other companies as well, but in this particular company also they were like striving for it. So because the course was also rigorous, and because the company was also very extremely driven, so it did take a lot of energy and efforts from my side as well, and it did shape my thinking process, or thinking fast, thinking more idea oriented, or lean thinking approach. Right, I think something, it doesn't work, cut it out, think again. Think something, it doesn't work, cut it out, think again. So that process got very shaped. Do I see it in India? I do see it at some places, but in the companies that I have worked so far, not so much. But they're more like, okay, take your time. Maybe there can be other ways of working about it. So some ideas can take time, some ideas can be faster. So it's more flexible here, but there was more like, extremely driven. Sometimes it can be a pressure as well, but sometimes it may not be. Maybe you are able to think. So that is one difference. Other than that, I would say that I don't know how product companies work there, because big product companies work there. I just worked in a smaller one. Maybe like in a Grab or a DBS, things are. I've heard that things are great. The culture is extremely good there, but I never got an opportunity to work. I have interacted with some designers, and they are also extremely, like innovation driven. I would say innovation driven. Within like very less time, you would see extremely new features, extremely um, things which the city can adapt to very easily. And people take in the innovation extremely fast in Singapore. So the adoption is like, if any innovation, the audiences adopt it extremely fast. And everyone has an iPhone there. So it's not like technology is difficult for them. Technology is very, very easy for them to adopt. So that also makes a huge difference, because then that also brings a um, that brings that idea to you that you have to be good enough, because your audience is also adapting. It's not like your audience is taking time to adapt. So design accordingly. So your audience is already very good. So yeah, that is the difference, I think, because it's obviously developed country, and very less people are technologically constrained, I would say.
Interesting, interesting. Uh, One of the follow-up questions around that is like when you came back, you kind of joined Flipkart. How did that came around, and how was your experience there?
So before working in Flipkart, I was also working in another company called Active AI. I did want to work in Flipkart from the beginning. I wanted to work in an e-commerce company. That was one of my goals, I would say. So that happened. I actually got the job in the previous company that I was working in, Active AI, back in Singapore itself, and then I continued it in India, and I started working full time in India only. Flipkart came to me when it was like this was just very random. It was not even via referral. It was just I applied for it and started, and I didn't even expect it to successfully complete, because there were numerous 8 to 9 rounds and everything, and it was very rigorous. But I always knew that I have to be a level to get into something like that. So the preparation for it started pretty long back before I started applying. So I knew it that I have to be at a certain bar. I have to be very good in craft, communication, execution, everything I have to be extremely good at. So I took a good amount of time to polish that skill and put work on my portfolio, work on side projects. I did work on many side projects before joining Flipkart, so that I can practice. It's not just to get into the company, but it also for you to hone your skills. So
Hmm.
yeah, so because that builds on your confidence. If you're not confident enough to get into any company, you will never get it. So you should have that confidence in your preparation. So because I had that confidence in my preparation, I did apply, and thankfully it did work out very well. I'm extremely happy to be here, and the graph of my learning in Flipkart has been extremely steep. Because the people are extremely talented, so it also motivates you to do your best. And the company does matter, right? If the people are talented around you and driven around you, you will also inculcate that. So there's so much to learn from every single person you interact with, be it a developer, be it a PM, be it a fellow designer, be it your design manager, everybody. So a different thing, I started learning different things from different peers of mine at Flipkart. So that has been a great experience. The learning curve here is it can't be a flat curve. It will be extremely steep because a lot of challenges are thrown at you, and you have to perform very well. So that journey has shaped and has built a lot of skills inside me over the past 1.5 years almost as well. So I was a different kind of a designer before Flipkart, and now Flipkart in a very short span it has made a lot of difference. The delta is extremely high. So I think that's the plus point, and you would say that your employment has been pretty successful if you have been able to learn a lot of things in a small time that you did not think of, that you learn so much. Maybe you expect there'll be learnings in a company, but you always go for learnings. But when you come out with a lot of learnings, then what do you expect? That's a plus point that builds your career base for future.
Interesting. One of the key questions this is one of the last and key questions that I ask everyone who comes on the podcast. It's about what uh, is one tip that you would give to any budding designer out there who's trying to get into design and trying to shape their career.
uh, I know it's going to be a very mainstream thing, but hard work, being driven and hardworking is extremely something which is underrated. People do talk about it, but if you're not driven, you will not get what you want. So you have to be at your toes every time. You have to be extremely driven. If let's say if you like making videos, like you and I, you have to be doing it continuously, because these things will shape your career in one or the other way. So I think to all the budding designers or who want to get into design, one thing that you should follow is be extremely driven, and everything else will fall into place. That is all. You would be able to get each and every skill that you want to acquire. You'll be able to get that company that you want to get into, but be extremely driven. Once you lessen your motivation or the thing that drives you, that will really affect your career ahead. So that would be my tip to everyone.
Interesting. Sure, I think that's the end of the podcast, but I usually ask this to everyone is what's next in your life? What's next for Shreya?
I'm still enjoying the December break. I'm still enjoying the December break. What I want to get back to is making more videos, definitely. Next year, I'm planning for having more and more public speaking opportunities. That's something that I always look for. And being close to the design community. If there's any event that I can be a part of or I can contribute, I would always be up for it. And from career-wise, I obviously want to also start making time to mentor people or to help folks who can gain something out of my experience, even if it's 1%, because I know how much mentorship has affected me. So if I can also help somebody else, in which adds a lot of value, not like just giving mentorship for the sake of it, but which brings value to them. So that is something which is there in my mind.
Interesting. Interesting. I think people will kind of get to a lot of this, and obviously, I'm going to link your YouTube channel for anyone who want to check that out. It has been such a wonderful podcast, Shreya. I think that's where we come to the end, and just want to thank you for coming and kind of sharing your experience. Any last words for the people kind of watching this?
The last words would be for everyone to enjoy their break, but when they come back, there should always be new things that you want to do, and there should always be things that you want to upscale in your career. So that's how you keep the cycle going on.
Interesting. Thanks a lot, Shreya, for coming in. Thanks a lot for everyone watching this podcast. And I will link Shreya's socials and everything down in the description for anyone who want to check that out and reach out to her. It's been an awesome podcast. Thanks, Shreya, for coming in. And thanks everyone for watching. See you guys in the next one.
Thank you.